May 10th, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart on the NinjaTrader 8 platform. Go down to the descriptions below. You can see where I took my trades as well as where I thought I might have seen setups. So this is what the chart looked like today. This has it marked up. This is the pre-market highs and the pre-market lows. They actually didn't really come into play, but you can see that price is pretty much traded. It kind of sold off in three big legs. One leg, pushback, second leg, pushback, and third leg. Then it made a fourth leg rally, and inside those larger legs, there were these little choppy little intermediate smaller legs. So I took a total of 4 trades today. The first trade was red, and then the other 3 were green. I'm going to go ahead and remove this pink one because it didn't really help. And let's get into the trades. The volume today was actually pretty high, which is a difference than compared to the last 2 days previously. The only piece of economic data that came out was around 5:30 Pacific Standard, which is the CPI inflation numbers. Now, whether the inflation numbers are high or low, it doesn't matter. The market's just going to react probably in a knee-jerk way. So to say that if you're looking for inflation numbers to be better, showing that inflation went down, you can't really place a swing trade against that, saying price is going to move down or price is going to move up, because it will pretty much move in ways that you don't expect. So just be careful around those economic news data. So the pre-market, it looked like after the big announcement, it surged up. Prices were chopping around. I come in and I see that there was no real setup. So overall today, even though there was more volume and big swings, there weren't very many, clean entries that I could find to enter and ride these big swing legs up and down. So it's a little unfortunate. So anyways, price is open. I don't see any good clean setups. There are like second entries all over the place, but they weren't necessarily high probability. That happens a lot. And if you just take every single second entry without taking into account the context or the way prices are moving, you're probably going to end up with a lot of losing trades and most likely be probably blow up your account. So there was a new high here. First entry long. I saw a second entry long here, but I didn't like the signal bar closing below the EMA. And at this time of day, you're not really sure what's happening. It looks like it could continue bullish, but you also have a potential top of the trading range up here with the bottom down here. I deleted that already because it ends up not really coming into play. So definitely I left that setup alone. Prices continue moving down. This bigger trading range, this bigger trend channel doesn't exist yet. So even though I have it right now, just keep in mind there's not something I use to play off of until much later. I do draw the shortened trend channel going down. I don't see any good entries. It's unfortunately, if you were able to get on this, like a first entry long, second entry long, and then a failure, if I was able to get this, you could have ridden this pretty much down for at least 10 to 20 points, which is kind of phenomenal. Prices continue chopping left and right. So it comes down, it touches this bottom part. So right here, I'm already thinking there might be a trend going down, but connecting this one to this one is a little premature, but I did see a trading range here. It's a pretty tight trading range. It's only about 3 points, so I left it alone. Didn't really want to try to take a second entry long or short unless something really remarkable showed up. Prices moved up. I was able to capture it in this shortened trend channel. Comes up. So now it touches here, and I'm starting to wonder, okay, there might be a channel here. So I do draw a preliminary channel that touches here. I actually had it a little bit lower cutting through these two guys. So at one point, it actually looked a little bit closer to this. And I treated this as a potential overshoot, and then down here. So that's what I had at one time. Prices continue moving down. I didn't quite like this after a while, and I did have it touch the top here much later, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete this for now. I saw a new high here, first entry long, comes down, this is the second entry long, and I saw this as a potential higher low. Now, this trading range isn't established yet, but it is a bottom here, so I thought this higher low was a confirmation of the second entry long, because it's holding against the EMA. It made one push up, and now it's making a potential second push up. And at the time, if I probably sat down and thought about it a little bit better, a little bit more thoroughly, this is where the first entry long, second entry long. Technically, second entry long, it fails, but it turns into a trap because it rallies back up. So I took the entry right here, and in hindsight, I think it might have been a little premature, but I'm not sure if I saw this setup again. I'm not sure that I necessarily wouldn't have taken the same entry, because I didn't know potentially that this is up here, this bottom, this top of the trading channel, because it's not super confirmed yet. So it could make one big leg up, pull back twice, and then continue another big leg up. But I didn't know at the time, and unfortunately I got stopped out. It's just the first trade of the day, and it was a red. Prices continue chopping around, goes down, it flushes down. I draw another short and trend channel, I saw one leg up. The pullback, so it's technically a new high. First entry long makes another new high, and I see a potential failed second entry short, because this is what I see. I see a first entry short, and then it pulls up. I group this overshoot if this is another leg. So first entry long, one move up, first entry short, another move up, potential second entry short. I thought it was a pretty decent signal bar. It broke one tick below. It could have been a trap, and I was thinking there was potentially a trading range in play. And I have this drawn now. I drew this touching the top. I wasn't sure it was a full channel yet. I just thought it was a trend line coming down. I thought there was enough resistance here, plus a potential resistance up here, because I actually have this slightly lower. See if I can slightly lower here. So I thought maybe it's also potential fail breakout. So I entered right here on my second trade. Comes down and it picks me up. I wanted to make sure I got out right close to the lows and not try to push my luck any further. So I was able to get out. Let's continue moving up. I see a new high here. First entry long, second entry long. So this second entry long, I was less enthusiastic about going long because the EMA is holding prices down. So I thought potentially this is setting up for a second entry long failure. Technically, you do have a trigger. If this is a new high, first entry long, second entry long breaks up above this guy, but also breaks down below, you technically have a failure. It goes down, was a pretty decent signal bar. I mean, this signal bar is right here, but it's like a little bit small though, but it is a signal bar, and it is below the EMA. And the descending trend channel is helping to confirm and acting as another key entry point. But I didn't want to really want to take this trade just yet, because I was still wondering if it's within this trading range to come down here and bounce right back up, and you have barely enough room to scalp out, maybe about 2 points, and I just wanted to have a little bit more assurance that I would be able to take myself out. And then it flashes down, breaks below, and it continues moving down. I don't see any setups that I like. Here, I eventually had it up here, and I thought it was an overshoot, and I dragged it down to here. And now it tests the second time. I'm very curious if it breaks through. It breaks through it momentarily, comes back up, and I'm wondering if it's going to break out the top, but it doesn't. Pulls back, comes back down, and now here it breaks out a second time, almost. touches probably like a fourth time, because I count it as first touch, second touch, third touch, potentially a fourth touch. So there's a new low here. First entry short, second entry short. Now this second entry short, I think it was actually a decent trade. If I had, one thing that was holding me back, because it's a decent trade, because it's a pretty good signal bar, but unfortunately it closed right at the EMA. It had just ticked one tick below, one tick slightly lower, and I think I might have been more eager to take this trade. Nevertheless, when I saw it, I thought maybe I should put my entry one tick below on the next candle. But I hesitated and I missed this trade because it flashed up, and when it went up, I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's good that I didn't put in the entry, because I was thinking maybe it reversed back up. And finally, when I decided that this was a good entry, this trade had already kind of got away from me. However, I did see a new high here, first entry long. I've seen a potential second entry long, but this second entry long, second entry long, let's see here. Let's see. Second entry long, this doji isn't a very good signal bar. Plus, you don't have that much room to the top. It's already showing a pretty bearish downtrend. So it made me hesitate, thinking like this isn't really a good entry to take. Because if I want to take a long position, I pretty much have to wait for a higher low to get confirmation that this is a potentially reversing. Plus, it's below the EMA at this point, so I'm not too enthusiastic about it. Keeps moving up, and here I get a higher low. So I see, okay, potentially there's a higher low right here. It's confirming the second entry long, and it just happens to be right above the EMA, but I'm not 100% sure. And for sure, when this comes down, it's coming back up. I thought, okay, this is actually potentially a trade here, because it almost bounced off the EMA. If it bounced off the EMA and closed a little bit more bullish, then maybe this candle was bullish enough, and I'm just inexperienced. But I thought if it closed a little bit more bullish, then I would actually be, willing to take this trade. And it's let's see. I was thinking there might be a trading range here that cut across, but I wasn't 100% sure this is actually a trading range. So I had this potentially drawn, but it could have just been a resistance. So I was concerned, because I wasn't sure at the bottom if it was a trading range. I was concerned it might bounce back down. Turns out it really worked out pretty well. You have to sit through this chop for a few minutes. The prices continue moving up. Chops around. I draw this shortened trend channel to kind of collect things. It touches the tops very nicely. Confirms like 4 times. Touches the bottom only twice. So here it touches the 3rd time. So I'm pretty confident I'm in a good trading range now. Trend channel, but it is getting towards the top. So I'm not ready to take any longs now, unless I was super confident it's going to break out. But I'm also not ready to take any shorts yet, because I need to see it break out, and I need to see a little bit of better setup. So here's your first breakout. It goes into this trading range now, this tightened trading range. Breaks out. It doesn't come back in, so it's not a failed breakout, and it continues going low. So I didn't quite see a good opportunity here, because there is a new high here, first entry long, but then there's another high here that's actually higher than this guy. So it kind of resets the count. See a first entry long, potential second entry long, but the idea to go long now, I think, has passed. You're probably thinking short, so you should be looking for a failed second entry long. You don't quite get it here. You kind of get it there, but I let it go. Prices continue moving down. Chops around. Looks like it's going within this trading range now. I see a new push up once, a pullback in the second one. So I saw this as a visual second entry short, because technically your second entry short is made right here. First entry short, second entry short here. But I group this as one big leg, where this yellow line is, one leg up, pullback, second leg up. So I saw this visual second entry short with 2 measured legs up. I wanted to wait for a confirmation to see, potentially if I wanted to go short. I get a lower high. So this is actually where I get really interested now. So visual second entry long, visual second entry short and a lower high. And I saw this set up. I thought, okay, I'm going to take the trade on the next candle. Boom. I didn't enter it enough. I didn't enter it quickly enough, so I chased it a little bit. And I ended up getting filled down here, which isn't the best entry. Should have just let it go. And actually, if I had actually placed it up here, this candle would have picked me up. Fortunately, this flashed down, and I was able to get out. I tried to go for a runner on this one, and I was able to pretty much trail my runner down. And when this candle formed, I put it one tick above, and I was able to get out right here. So it's just a small runner, pretty much not as good as the actual pour. Then I also saw another setup coming up. I saw a first entry short, second entry short, and I thought this was like a visual lower high, because you could say it's one move up, pull back, another move up, and it pulls back, and I saw this as a lower high in the visual. So I actually entered on this trade, but I didn't enter on this trade. I was thinking there was a trade here, and to see where I entered. I also saw a new high here, first entry long, second entry long, and then right here, it hasn't failed yet because it made a double bottom. I'm anticipating a failure, and it fails. So it's hard to see where my arrow is, but it's right here. This little purple arrow is right where I entered, and I was able to get out, and I tried to go for a runner, but I didn't move it fast enough, so I got my core, and I moved my runner to one tick below break even. That's where I got stopped out. So there's no real runner on this one. And prices continue moving down. Breaks out of this trading range. Goes into a smaller little congestion trading range. Keeps going down. I'm just sitting on my hands now. I don't see any really good entry. It makes a new low. First entry short. I see a second entry short potentially setting up here. But this candle is very, very bullish, so I'm not that enthusiastic about it. It also closed below the EMA, which is fine. But I just wanted to see a confirmation of like a lower high. You don't quite get it. You don't get a lower high till about right here. But right here, it feels like you're already testing the lows. To try to go short would be risky in my opinion. You could count it as a new high here, first entry long, second entry long, but this is a terrible signal bar. So it just made me say I should just, sit on my hands. The price continue moving up. Chops sideways, goes up, makes this big move. So if you had seen this as a new high, first entry long, and you had the courage, which I didn't, to take an entry up here, you would have probably gotten filled here and maybe gotten stopped out here. But then it would have been very difficult in my mind to see that this is setting up to potentially reverse and make this big move. So I think this is just happens to be a trade that I had to let go. I don't know if I would have known ahead of time to jump on something like this. But I also see no second entries to be able to jump on midway. And it chops around left and sideways, and I do see a new high here, and it makes a double top. So we started to count here, so it's like a first entry long here. If you counted the back here and you said first entry long and second entry long, then potentially you might have thought to take this trade, but this isn't the best signal bar, and technically when you reset the count, it's only first entry long. So there was unfortunately no setup here. Prices continue moving up. Goes into this trading range. This trend channel goes up. I still don't see any good setups. You see a new high, first entry long, potentially a second entry long here. It forms your second entry long. And I'm thinking, okay, well, it made a double top. It could be a second entry long, first entry long, second entry long. It's also new low here, first entry short, second entry short. So it moves up one more tick. It doesn't fail the second entry long, continues the second entry long, and it would have had a failed second entry short. And that's where this occurred. However, I was hesitant to take this trade just because mainly that it was the signal bar, for the second entry long wasn't that convincing. And then the failed second entry short is fine, except this is very congested. Look at this range. It's 143 to about 140. So you only have about 3 points. And it could be construed or thought as this is potentially the top of the trading range. But then what was going for it was it hadn't really tested the EMA except for once, and this is probably the second time. So there's some conflicting ideas that just made me thought, well, I should just wait for a higher low then. And I do get a higher low here. But then I was again wondering, it's a higher low now. It's starting to break out of this trading range. It's near the tops. And so again, another conflicting idea. I wasn't sure which one was the more dominant factor. So I thought I should just sit on my hands and skip this trade. Turns out if I had gone long, it would have worked out. I had to sit through this chop and grind. And then prices continue moving up. And it makes a new high, first entry long. And it goes again and makes another new high. Here's a first entry long. Here's a second entry long. So potentially there's a second entry long trade here. But since I already had 3 good trades in a row, and my first trade was red, so it's 4 trades total. It's toward the end of the day. It was about 12:39 Pacific Standard. I thought I'm just gonna ride it out and just watch, and believe that there's probably entry 1 tick above here. So it would have gotten filled here. Fortunately, it wouldn't have moved enough to get me my profit. Most likely, it would have stopped me out here. So actually, not trading so late in the day was actually a good decision, because I think if I had taken the trade, it would have been a losing trade. The prices continue moving down. Chops kind of choppy until the end of the day. So this is the last 10 minutes, and you could argue, yes, there's a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. This is a very good signal bar, but it is second entry long. And you could also say new high here, first entry long, and then maybe a potential second entry long. But this is just a lot of noise at this point, so it's good that I didn't take any trades, especially after this one that would have turned out as a losing one. And overall, there's a lot of volume today, a lot more than the last 2 days. But unfortunately, there wasn't as many clean setups. There was actually a few setups that kind of faked me out. So I think I'll get better with experience, but overall, not too bad compared against the last 2 days.